Alright, so now that we've set up this this drawing in Rhino, essentially now what we want to do is take this finished drawing into Illustrator, essentially to get it ready for a presentation or just our drawing set. So previously when we were exporting these drawings, we didn't really care about the scale. But just say, for example, we want to take a drawing and export it into Illustrator at a certain scale, like quarter-inch scale or eighth-inch scale. One thing that Illustrator does is it makes a difference on the where it's located in Rhino. So, for example, if you still have these hatch files open, if you were to select just the curve and you were to go to File, Export Selected, save it as an Adobe Illustrator file. If you do a snapshot, essentially what it does is it puts it right in the center of your screen. Right, but if you export it at a certain scale, File, Export Selected, let's see, let's do just 1:1, see if this will work. 1 inch equals 1 inch. Alright, it might be a little bit too large. Technically it is in here. There it is. It's way down here. It won't even allow me to move it. So essentially what it's doing, let me set this up differently. I'm just going to move this slightly closer to the grid. Just like move it there, for example. Export selected. Open this up in Illustrator. There it is, way down here. So the reason why I was showing up down here is when you export something into Illustrator at a certain scale, what it does is it takes essentially your grid into consideration. So it needs some kind of a reference. So what it's doing is that 0, 0 mark, it's using that as a reference as to set the scale of this object. And because this object is located down here, when we take this into Illustrator, it's using this as a 0, 0 mark, and it's putting that object essentially down here. So if I would have done the same thing and moving this object directly over the 0, 0 mark, and I export it this way, one-to-one, open this up in Illustrator. It's essentially using that as my 0, 0 mark, and there's that square. And the one-to-one scale is essentially exporting it at full scale. But just say, for example, I want to export these drawings. I'm going to export this drawing. And because I want to export it at a scale, and I know that it uses that 0, 0 point as a reference, I want to get this drawing as close to the grid as possible. Put it right there. And I want to use this as a reference. You should have access to this PDF file. These numbers down here is what I want to use. So say, for example, the first time I'm going to export this, I'm going to export this as a quarter-inch scale. So essentially what I need to type in is 48 inches equals 1 inch to get a 1/4 inch scale. So I select all of this, go to File, Export Selected, save it as an Illustrator file, type in 48 inches equals 1 inch, hit OK. So if I put this into Illustrator, this drawing is now at a 1/4 inch scale, which for now it's still a little bit large, so I'm going to export this one more time at a slightly smaller scale. Come back here into Rhino, File, Export Selected, I'm in my top view, Illustrator file. So instead of 48, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 1/8 scale. So I'm going to type in 96 inches equals 1 inch. So come over here, type in 96 inches equals 1 inch, hit OK. And I'm going to open this up in Illustrator now. And at an 1/8 inch scale, it's slightly better. I'm going to change my page size. So instead of an 11 by 17, I can do edit artboards. I can do 17 by 11 or whatever size you need. And I can move my drawing to fit inside. And now essentially what I want to do is just change a few things, rearrange my layers a little bit. I always want my hatch to be at the bottom. So I want to make sure I select this hatch. I'll change the color of this hatch. And I'm going to put this hatch at the bottom. The same thing with this hatch. I'm going to select it, change this color of this hatch. Move this towards the bottom. I don't need this layer, clipping plane, I'm going to delete it. Now I just need to start adjusting some of my line weights. So that's that's my section cut. I want that to probably be my darkest line. Make this a little bit thicker to emphasize that. This one is all my other lines. I'll just make this one just like a light gray color. Make these lines a little bit thinner. Too thin. That's good. Ground line, I'm going to want that one to be a little bit thicker. I want that one to stand out a little bit more. Make that a slightly different, a slightly darker shade of gray. And then my building outline. Just so I'm using different different line weights, different shades of color. There you go. That looks a little bit better. And again, if you need to, you could always rearrange the order of which your lines show up. So here, like in my section cut, the section cut is a little bit lower than this drawing. So then, like this is overlapping on top. But if I take my section cut layer and just drag that all the way to the top, there you go. It actually shows up a little bit better. And essentially what I'm going to do is, just to make the section read a little bit better, I'm going to add some trees and people. I am going to cheat and use this file. It already has a couple trees and people in there. I'm just going to copy and paste. And place this tree. Scale it down. Just use my arrow keys just to move it a little bit. And I can use same thing on this side. Scale this tree down some. Place it over here. And using my arrow keys and shift, it helps with the dragging process. These are just people that just have a simple fill. I think they just have just like a light gray color, maybe some transparency. No. Or maybe the trees have some transparency to them, but not the people. The people are just different shades of gray. Somebody walking on toward the outside, and a few people on the inside of the building. So I have this person walking outside. And these people inside talking. And there I have the section cut for my building where the entire drawing was done in Rhino and now taken into Illustrator with some trees and people just to make the drawing read a little bit better.